Hey everybody, Alex here for Nerdy Inc. coming at you with a review of what was supposed to be Season 2 of Daredevil. New to the series, showrunners Doug Petrie and Marco Ramirez wanted to tell a story that makes us question what it means to be a hero. This goal is not met particularly well, as some plot points succeed more than others. In fact, Season 2 as a whole is one of the strangest seasons of television I've ever seen as it pertains to story structure and theme. The first 7-ish episodes are pretty good at balancing the different elements at play. Around episode 8, when the two stories diverge, things take a turn. The Punisher's story continues to excel, and Elektra's story makes me want to be dead. And that's really about all I can say without going into spoilers. So, here's your official spoiler warning for Season 2 of Daredevil. To my pleasure, this season wastes no time getting things moving. Unlike the show's first season, the Punisher is introduced very early on and his role in the show is very clearly defined. Fisk was a man who lived in the shadows, but the Punisher makes his work known right off the bat. These first 2 episodes take advantage of the pulpy crime noir genre, giving all parties an important role in the stories. Daredevil, the Punisher, Foggy, Karen, the DA and her crew, everyone plays an important part in the drama, giving us a compelling setup for the rest of the season. At the end of episode 2, Daredevil and the Punisher are gone without a trace, and the show prepares for its best stretch of episodes. Borrowing from an iconic story in comic book history, the Punisher chains Daredevil up to a wall and the two debate their personal codes of ethics. It's here where the show best speaks to the goal of the showrunners, as the Punisher insists that his methodology results in a permanent change for New York, whereas Daredevil's is a half measure that looks good in newspapers but has no long-term benefits. Daredevil of course counters with the idea that no man can be judge, jury, and executioner for the whole city, and he sees firsthand that the Punisher's total war mindset can hurt innocent people as much as it helps them. The show makes its first misstep when it continues to adapt that moment from the comics. In the books, Daredevil has a gun taped to his hand, and the Punisher gives Daredevil a choice. Stand by your no-kill principles as I gun down this criminal in front of you, or accept that killing can be a viable option and shoot me in the head before I take the law into my own hands. Daredevil ultimately takes the shot on the Punisher, only to find that the firing pin has been removed. In the show, however, he uses the gun to shoot his own chains and is able to escape and fight the Punisher head on. This is not me saying, oh, the comics are better. This, in essence, is cheating. This moment in the comics was Daredevil's own Kobayashi Maru, a no-win scenario that will make him stand by his morals but lose the day, or have the criminal be spared but admit the Punisher was right. By escaping his bindings, Daredevil avoided the question. He Captain Kirk'd his way out of a dilemma that doesn't result in him having the horrifying revelation that he should have had. While many of the lines of dialogue were left intact,
What kind of choice is that?
The kind I make every time I pull the trigger.
the heart of the story was dodged, diminishing the overall importance of the encounter. This is, of course, then followed up by the obligatory follow-up to the hallway fight scene from Season 1. It's another long tracking shot through a building where Daredevil fights dozens of faceless thugs. Was it cool? Certainly. But this shortcut through character development to get to the action is something that the show will do more frequently throughout the season. But we'll get to that. From here, the show enters its strongest stretch of episodes, as the plotline perfectly captures the spirit of Matt Murdock. Daredevil saves the Punisher's life because it's the right thing to do, but he also gives him over to the cops because he's a menace to society. Once he finds out, however, that the DA is going to have him extradited to Delaware to get the death penalty, Nelson and Murdock step in to save the day in the courtroom. It's clear that the DA really has it out for the Punisher. Abnormally so. He's off the streets, but that's not enough. She wants him dead. Matt, Foggy, and Karen are now fighting to protect Frank Castle's life and get to the bottom of this legitimately intriguing conspiracy. Enter Elektra. Matt's old college flame returns to New York on mysterious business, begging him for help. Matt tries to resist her, but he can't quite do it. Elektra is intoxicating in the most literal sense of the word. Matt gets an adrenaline rush when he's around her, but she's poisonous to his professional career. We see through flashbacks how she's been a bad influence on Matt, bringing his dark side to light. As adults, she's doing it again. Her connection to the Japanese mob and Roxxon Oil's corrupt subsidiaries are a distraction to Matt's legal duties, leaving Karen and Foggy to handle pretty much the entire case. The trial collapses in on itself and it seems that Matt and Elektra are the ones to blame. The Punisher goes to prison and it seems like Nelson and Murdock is kaput. Here's where the stories diverge, and the show becomes a big, hot mess. Frank Castle, Karen Page, and to a lesser extent Foggy all attempt to make sense of things. We learn that Castle threw his own case on the orders of, surprise, Wilson Fisk. Fisk, whose presence immediately elevates the show, promises Frank answers. Castle learns that the blacksmith is responsible for his family's death, and Fisk makes Castle an offer he can't refuse. Get out and kill the criminals. Fisk will benefit from that when he's released, but they'll settle their differences at a later time. Castle begrudgingly agrees and he escapes prison. Word of his escape is succeeded by the assassination of the DA and an attempted murder on Karen Page. Karen sees that the Punisher is not behind these attacks and agrees to work with him to get the answers he needs. Frank ultimately learns that his old commanding officer in the Marines is the blacksmith and he murders him. He discovers his weapons cache and embraces his role as the Punisher, telling Karen that he's a monster and he won't change his path from here on out. This storyline works very well, partly because of John Bernthal's excellent performance and partly because it just makes sense. It's a detective story that is propelled by a genuine desire to seek closure and find answers. Karen goes along with this out of a sense of respect for Castle. She is, at times, afraid of what he can do, but she ultimately feels for the man whose life has been hell ever since the day his family was caught in the crossfire of gang warfare and the sting operation that went south. He's not absolved of his crimes, but in a way they're crimes of passion. And since his crimes, generally, are directed towards mob bosses and mass murderers, he is seen as someone that the city needs by many people. Karen gets that. Karen knows there's more to the man. Karen knows that, at heart, he is kind of a hero. Elektra's storyline, however, is utter garbage for the rest of the season. It's here that the show abandons its neo-noir crime drama so that Matt can go off and fight immortal magic ninjas. Just legions upon legions of immortal magic ninjas. Die-hard fans will know that the Hand, this secret immortal magic ninja society, does have basis in the comics. The latter portion of Frank Miller's run saw a substantial amount of attention devoted to the Hand. However, this storyline doesn't work here and now for a multitude of reasons. Let's go through them. Number 1. Tonal inconsistencies. Much of Frank Miller's work has been inspired by ninjas, samurais, and Eastern martial arts. Whether it's Batman, Wolverine, or Daredevil, Miller's comics have often paid homage to these types of stories. When they did so, however, it was done in totality. Weird mystical comics are fine, and weird mystical TV shows are also fine. However, when a grounded detective story is undercut by immortal magic ninjas, the tonal elements of the story clash, and it just feels wrong. Number 2. Lack of stakes. This entire plotline hinged on the idea that there was a fantastical superweapon called the Black Sky. We don't know what it does. We have no reason to care. It's finally revealed that Elektra is the Black Sky and, well, I still don't care. So what? Does she have superpowers? Does she turn into a dragon? Does she have agency or does she become possessed? The lack of details about what this means leads to us not really caring about it. Number 3. No outsider consequences. When this arc began, Stick said that New York was home to a war that nobody knew was being fought. Okay, then keep fighting. What do I care? The notion that a war has been going on for centuries and no one knows about it is probably the least interesting thing to include in a show because it doesn't affect anyone. There is no reason to believe that this is going to destroy the city from the inside out. There's no reason to believe that Nobo or whoever is in charge of the magic immortal ninjas will use this power maliciously. There's no reason for us to get involved. When a character like Stick has to come along and say, "Trust me, it's bad," then my mind kinda turns off because he's unable to articulate why it's so important. These people built a giant hole in Midtown? Great. Good work. Nice determination. Number 4. Thematic shortcomings. How does this fit into the season's overall theme? If we're working under the assumption that the storyline was written to serve the idea, what does it mean to be a hero? Then it sucks. Matt has very little inner turmoil throughout these episodes. For a good chunk of time, he just appears to be along for the ride. Elektra, on the other hand, has to make a choice. She can choose to embrace the Black Sky, or she can fight against the immortal magic ninjas. That, at a surface level, sounds like it supports the theme, but when you think about it, it really doesn't. Again, we have no idea what the Black Sky is, so that just gets thrown out the window right off the bat. So this is more of an issue of predestination than actual heroics. All we know is that Elektra was raised from childhood to be something, so watching her debate becoming that thing is really a toothless mechanic. Number 5. Ninjas. There were hundreds upon hundreds of immortal magic ninjas running through the most populated city in the United States and nobody saw them? Now, you may sit there and say that my Daredevil knowledge is insufficient and that I don't know enough about the character and therefore I have no right to question the lack of answers provided by the show and that I should educate myself on the character's past. But it's important to realize that a television show needs to stand on its own. Even if these answers and more were fleshed out ad nauseum in the comics, a viewer may be questioning why the thing on screen matters. My girlfriend, may God have mercy on her soul, has never read a Daredevil comic, and so she had no idea what was happening on screen or how it played into the larger story. The Elektra storyline was poorly written and out of place. Maybe this was because they needed to isolate the Punisher to serve as a backdoor pilot for the character, or maybe they thought it would just make for cooler action, but either way, this stretch of episodes fell flatter than I could have possibly imagined. And to top it off, we were then forced to endure Karen's newspaper article titled, "What is it to be a hero?" It's almost as if the story was so off base from the intended theme that they needed to force us to think about the question. I've said before that Daredevil is my favorite superhero, so it was shocking to see a season of television do so well and then just pivot into madness. The cliffhanger ending is setting up the return of Elektra, but next season will really need to refocus on what it is that makes Daredevil great. It's the moral dilemmas, it's the tension between the law and justice, and it's the emotional conflict of pleasure versus guilt. It's not immortal magic ninjas. And those are our thoughts on Daredevil Season 2. Do you have thoughts of your own? Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, for more games, comics, movies, and more, keep it right here on Nerdy Inc.